Good morning, Happy Valley, and welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. I'm your host, Richie Schnyderite. I'm joined by wrestling analyst Joey Klender. Joey, what's going on, man?
How's it going, Rich? Good, man. How are you?
Can't complain. Some interesting news over the past week, 2 weeks now, I guess, for Penn State wrestling. So let's jump right into it. Carter Starocci's back. How big was that? I know, obviously, pretty big, but from your standpoint,
obviously a pretty huge announcement. But I'll be honest with you, I never really expected him not to come back. You know, depending on how they do the nationals this year, in a perfect world, he makes the finals. He's got a chance to become Penn State's first four-time national champion. So him and Brooks both have a shot at that this year. I don't think there was ever a situation where he wasn't coming back to State College. I know we have the Olympics next year. He's got MMA on the table, but I just think that the 3 years of domination he's, accrued over the past few years and the 3 national titles, I don't think he was ever not coming back to try to be Penn State's first four-timer. So not super surprised by it. I think it was more posturing than anything, but it gets people talking, so I get it. But I definitely did not expect anything different.
Yeah, of course. Now 24-0 last year. Like you said, potentially Penn State's first four-time national champ. I mean, without a doubt, slides into the lineup. But what does your lineup kind of look like now?
I mean, it's pretty standard. After we saw the the lineup for the All-Star meet last week come out, we know that Brooks is going to be at 97 and Truex is going to take 84. So I think that's going to be good. It's going to be interesting to see how Brooks kind of slides into that upper weight class, but I don't really expect anything too crazy. I think that, the lineups, it's kind of going to be pretty similar to what it was last year, other than, we're really hoping that Robbie Howard slides in at 25 and we can have somebody who's, going to be pretty solid and probably contribute to some points at, Big Tens and nationals. And, we're going to have a national qualifier at 25 if he stays healthy. And that's what we're hoping for. But, we're going to have Haynes at 57, Starocci at 74, Truex, a big transfer at 84. 33 is kind of up in the air because, we're hearing reports that Aaron Nagel, was injured. And, obviously we'll see what happens with that. But, I've read reports that he's going to be out till the postseason, and I've read that he's fine. So, I'm trying to figure out what's going on with that. But, I mean, the lineup looks good. It's strong. And, we're looking at another national title year probably for Penn State. Pretty dominant, I would imagine.
Yeah. Now we just mentioned Brooks before. He's going to the 190. He just won the under 23 86 kilograms, which is basically 190. So just talk a little bit about him and how that adjustment's going to be, and about his world championship, because that is big news.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he went in and he went over to Albania and dominated. He went to the finals against a Japanese guy, Tetsuya Shirai, I believe is how you would pronounce his name.
That's the best we could do there.
Yeah. He actually had a tougher match in the semis with the 5-4 win over Bagayev of, I would imagine he's probably Russian. But then, he went into the finals and put on a clinic. He looked like David Taylor out there with the ankle picks. It was awesome. So, got the tech fall, and he's a world champ again. So, just another notch in the cap for the Nittany Lions Wrestling Club. And, I don't think he's going to have too much of an issue moving up to 97. We've seen guys do it in the past and have some success. We saw Anthony Cassar go from 97 to heavyweight and win a national championship. He's going to be bulking up and eating good, and I'm sure, Penn State's nutritionists are helping him and everything with that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits into that lineup. So, or into that weight class. But the World Championships is a huge accomplishment. Really, really awesome stuff to, go into the season with a lot of momentum, and just great stuff from Aaron Brooks.
Yeah, no, that's huge. It's a huge start for him for technically, I guess, not even the season, but preseason. But
Right.
got some shake some of that rust off from the off season, pack on those pounds, and if any nutritionist staff is going to bulk him up, it's perfectly. It's going to be this one. So,
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
moving on a little bit, Penn State has 6 wrestlers that were announced are going to be in the NWCA All-Star Classic at Rec Hall on November 21st. Shane Van Ness, Levi Haynes, Carter Starocci, Bernie Truout. I pronounced that incorrectly completely, and Aaron Brooks.
You also
Am I
have
missing someone?
Kirk
I'm
at
missing. Yeah, I'm missing.
Wrestling.
Yeah. So 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, no. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't count today.
It's
It's
6.
an early morning. 6. Jeez, I am struggling.
You're good, man.
6, which is going to be presented by Flow Wrestling. Just talk a little bit about this event, and what this means, because Penn State's sending a pretty heavy lineup right there.
Well, to my recollection, this is the first time it's been in Rec Hall. It was in Philadelphia a few years ago, but I imagine that it being at State College probably has something to do with the fact that Penn State's sending 6.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple really good 1 versus 2s. Brooks is wrestling Tanner Sloan. Kirk's wrestling Hendrickson. Haynes and Teamer is going to be a very fun matchup, I think. I'm really looking forward to Starocci and Mekhi Lewis. Mekhi Lewis, he's been nursing a shoulder injury for a couple years. I believe it was last year at Nationals. He actually had a default out because of that shoulder injury. But this is a guy who dethroned Vincenzo Joseph from 65 as a junior. And so he was a freshman when Vincenzo was a junior. So depending on how that shoulder is, that's going to be a good benchmark to see what Starocci's looking at moving into the year. That's a really tough opponent. I'm interested to see how that goes, because if Starocci can go in and if he puts up bonus points, I mean, we have an opportunity to see somebody who's going to have arguably one of the most dominant seasons in the history of college. Starocci is just, I mean, I'm not expecting him to have too many close matches this year, but Mekhi Lewis is no joke. I mean, he's a national champion. Granted, if he's nursing a shoulder injury, maybe it won't be, as great of a match as we think. But I don't think he's wrestling in some exhibition if he's not 100%. That's just my personal take. But there's a lot of good matches. Ramos and Noto is a great match at 25. Ramos, of course, is the guy who knocked off Spencer Lee and pinned him last year in the semis. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll be in State College for it, and I'm really excited for it. It'll be the first time I've actually ever gone to an All-Star match, so it's going to be a good time.
Awesome. So just looking through the lineup for that day, I think the only guy that I guess wouldn't be favored would be Bernie Truax. Is this just what do you think the chances are he can pull off that, I guess, an upset, quote unquote?
Yeah, I mean, Parker Kekison is definitely a good opponent. Truax, I'm really excited. I think this is going to be a good benchmark of how much he's improved since he's come from Cal Poly. Obviously he knocked off Max Dean last year.
Yeah.
At Nationals, and that sucks for us because we were all Max Dean fans, of course, but I'm really excited to see how he does and what improvements he's made since being in State College. He's been there for a few months now, and he's going to have the Rec Hall crowd behind him, so it's going to be interesting to see how it is. But like you said, he's the only one that's ranked lower than his opponent from the Penn State standpoint. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
So now I want to rewind a little bit, because this is until November 21st, this All-Star Classic exhibition, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah.
Rewinding a little bit, the season technically starts next Sunday, not this upcoming Sunday, next Sunday, November 12th, in the Journeymen Collegiate Classic, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Freedom High School. It's been, I want to say Kales first took his team, 2 years, if I'm looking at this correctly?
2 seasons ago,
21 to
22 season, yeah.
And they had a decent lineup back then. And then it seems like there's some decent teams coming into this one too, with North Carolina State, Arizona State, Purdue, Lehigh, a bunch of other sending guys. What kind of lineup I know it hasn't been announced yet, but what kind of guys do we expect to be going to this Collegiate Classic?
I would say it's probably going to be a pretty solid lineup, like you mentioned. When they went 2 years ago, it was in Lancaster at Spooky Nook, which is, half hour from my house. And They brought a
Of
pretty
course, they
solid
love it.
lineup. I don't want to speculate too much on it because, Kale hasn't made a formal announcement about who's going to be wrestling there. So I don't really want to,
Mhm.
go out on a limb and say it's going to be all starters because I don't know if it'll necessarily be that. But yeah, I'm expecting them to bring a pretty solid lineup. It's a good way to kind of ease into the season. There's a lot of, good teams, like you said, coming to the tournament. So,
Mhm.
I think it's just a good way to kind of get a couple matches under each guy's belt and kind of build some momentum into the year.
Mhm.
You know, with the All-Star also coming up, there's a couple, obviously there's some firework matches at the All-Star. So I just kind of feel like they're going to bring a pretty solid lineup. Like you said, 2 years ago, they didn't really bring anybody that wasn't super notable. I know a couple guys
Mhm.
that were there. Baylor Shunk was at 25. I'm looking at it now. Joey Bloomer was at 57. Creighton Edsall at 65. But Starocci, Brooks, Max Dean, Kirk, RBY, Nick Lee, Bo Bartlett all wrestled in that tournament.
Yeah.
It was a team tournament then. So I'm excited to see who they bring, and I'm excited to
Mhm.
see what happens with that. A lot of really good teams, a lot of good talent. Should be a good event. But I do know that it's I think a it's a very interesting move to put it in Freedom High School because from what I've read, there's like 600 tickets, and I know it's probably promotional for Lehigh Valley area, but
Mhm.
a lot of fireworks schools around coming to this thing, and 600 seats is definitely a conservative amount of
Yeah,
tickets for these
that's kind of
events.
insane. I didn't even think to look, but that makes sense for being at a high school. But
Right.
why are you going to do that?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like I said, I think it's more like to promote the Penn State and the Lehigh Valley
Yeah,
area, but who knows?
yeah,
It's an interesting move to say the least. So,
whatever helps. So technically, I know Journeyman Classic is November 12th. Army Black Knight Invite the 19th. The All-Star Classic 21st. We don't see the first duel until the 20 or not even 20, the December 3rd versus Lehigh. It's just a lot of waiting. It feels like because the season for most people starts this weekend.
right, yeah. I'll be honest. I'm really looking forward to this year. I'm really looking forward to see Starocci and Brooks. I'm excited to see if we can get a 4-timer finally. I'm also very excited for Bo Bartlett, and I'm very excited for Shane Van Ness, and obviously Haynes as well. But um, I'm just really excited to see how this team's improved. We had a lot of All-Americans last year, led to a team title, and I think this is going to be a year that's one of the best in the history of the school in terms of the dynasty that Kale's built over the last 14 or 15 years now.
Yeah.
Um, it's gonna be fun to watch. There's a lot of excitement, and like I said, I never thought Carter was not going to come
Mhm.
back. But I'm happy he's made it official. So
Yeah, no, that is huge news for Penn State. It's finally official. One thing I want to pick your brain with, just because I'm all over social media. I saw this all over wrestling Twitter. I even saw Rutgers head coach quote tweet this, but someone suggested they would like to see an official NAIA wrestling dual meet championship, and then Rutgers head coach actually quoted it and said there should be a dual meet championship for every division, both men and women. Overall thoughts?
it's tough because you're already putting a lot on. You're already putting a lot on.
I thought it was my dog.
Sorry about that's my dog.
No, I thought it was mine. I'm turning around I'm like, shit, shut up.
You already put a lot on these kids to wrestle. It is a brutal sport, especially at the Division I level.
Mm-hmm.
These guys, when they get done these tournaments, look like they've been in a literal fist fight.
Yeah.
They already have pretty demanding physically. Physically, these seasons are very demanding. It's a lot of weight
Mm-hmm.
cutting. It's a lot of making weight. It's a lot of up and down emotions.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of seems like it may be a good idea if it's kind of talked about for a couple years, but I'm not super sure that a lot of coaches will be on board with it. I remember a few years ago when Suriano was at Penn State, they were in Oklahoma, wrestling Oklahoma State. He gets
Mm-hmm.
hurt, and from what I remember, I don't think Kale was super on board with doing that. I can't remember. I guess it was the NWCA team, team thing a couple years ago. And I vaguely remember Kale being kind of against it. And I think, he was justified in doing that because he wasn't justified in voicing that because his star 25-pounder got hurt. And then it led to him leaving the school because of how it was handled.
Well, to be fair, head case, but
yeah. But I mean, that's something that's gonna have to be worked out just because these guys, they're already wrestling pretty demanding years. There's a lot of duels. I think that Penn State, like you said, they don't have a duel until December 3rd. They have these kind of preseason tournaments. They have the exhibition with the All-Star. They have other things going on. So it would have to be ironed out. It'd have to be kind of something that gets sort of worked into the schedule so it's sort of fair because these kids are already getting absolutely, they're getting worked on a daily basis from October when the season starts to March. And then the really good kids, they're wrestling all summer and they're wrestling internationally. And I just don't know if it's necessarily what a lot of coaches or even wrestlers might want. Yeah, it's another chance to compete. Yeah, it's another chance to kind of prove your team. But, nationals gives you enough of a chance to kind of prove yourself as a dual meet squad, or not as a dual meet squad, but as a team. And I'm not really super supportive of it at the current time. I think there'd have to be more talked about it and kind of worked into the schedule so it's fair for everybody. So
yeah, like I said, just kind of picking your brain a little bit because it is all over social media and wrestling. Twitter is a different animal in its own right, but that's what they've been talking about lately.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
I guess the last, not even a question, but next Wednesday, we'll have more from Kale. Kale will have his first media availability. I'm sure anything and everything under the sun will be asked with a potential injury, not injury, Starocci's return, et cetera, lineup, how you're going to adjust, and probably Journeymen Classic. We'll probably get the roster for that as well. So
yeah,
if you have any questions for Kale at all whatsoever, shoot them in our comments below. We'll try to get them towards Kale. Can't promise anything. We'll try our best. Any final thoughts, Joe?
I don't think so. I'm just excited for wrestling to start, and I'm excited for some upsets, and I'm excited to be back in Rec Hall, and I'm just looking forward to wrestling season, man. I look forward to it every year, so I'm just more than excited that it's here.
Yeah, it's this close. It's this close, and we're almost there.
We're almost
10 more days from today, and we'll be seeing some Penn State Nittany Lions on the wrestling mat. So
that's right.
For me and Joey, that's another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast. Be sure to stay tuned for more episodes and press conferences, etc., and all that. Just hit the subscribe button down below, and peace out.